He looks me right in the eye and he goes, "Look, you Irish prick, let's just get on with it." And I go, "First of all, I'm Scottish. And second of all, we'll get on with it when I'm ready to get on with it." And he looked at me and I looked at him. And then he had a huge, big smile. He gave me a hug. He said, "You're all right."
This podcast is brought to you by Squarespace. Hey guys, we are back with another episode of the Brooklyn PhotoWorks ISO 320 podcast. And today we have got Mark Mann on the podcast. Mark Mann is a celebrity photographer. He is a bit of a celebrity himself. He's photographed iconic people. I would say that he is a tried and true portrait photographer in all of the sense, in both his work, in his vision, in the way he interacts with his clients and his people. There's a whole kind of methodology in there. And I have followed his work for many years and admired his work and been very inspired. And then I had the pleasure of meeting him a few months ago. And here we are now. We're on the podcast together, which is absolutely incredible. What a great thing. So there is some positive. What's that?
Am I blushing?
No,
not yet.
Well,
keep going, Adam.
Yeah, I can wax poetic, but look, I'm so honored to have you on the podcast. I mean, it's just such a fun thing to be able to reach out to people that you admire, and then actually get to have a conversation with them, and also for you to share some of your nuggets and your knowledge with our viewers, which is absolutely incredible. So, Mark Mann, welcome to the ISO 360 podcast.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. And in all these things that I've been doing recently, it's fascinating to me because, when you're a freelancer and you're a photographer trying to grind a living, you never, or at least I don't have any concept of where I am on the photographic ladder. I always feel I'm just kind of climbing. And,
right.
And it always blows me away when anybody just asks me to do anything, to share anything, because I genuinely feel I don't know anything. Because I just learning so much all the time, every day. Is that how can I know anything? I think what I've come to realize is I'm beginning to understand I know about what I don't know, but very little about what I do know. If that makes sense.
1,000%. And amen. Okay. That, what Mark just said there, people, if you're listening, that is the true definition of humility. But it's also, I think, a very common thread. What's that?
It's fear.
Fear. No. These themes have come up again.
Yep.
Fear is probably the biggest driving force behind us as portrait photographers, because there's so much pressure. There's so many unknowns. You can plan, and everything does not go anywhere even close to where you want it or how you want it. You have one minuscule amount of time. The room is smaller. There's a giant conference table in there. Your subject comes up in a shitty mood. It's raining and their hair is a mess, whatever. Yes.
And that's just Tuesday.
No, but I think that's the common theme.
Debt collector.
Who is it?
It's probably a debt collector.
Yeah, right. Yeah, shoot them off.
They just got done with me. They're calling you. Oh man. But no, I think that's a common theme, and it's nice to hear that you're never. Hopefully, us as photographers never reach our peak. We never have a pinnacle. Otherwise, the way down might be a little sad. So to kind of always striving to learn more and to not think that you know everything is nice to hear from someone who's at the top.
It's crazy, One of the you can talk a little more about the current situation, but one of the things I've really indulged myself in over the last few weeks. I mean, but let's be brutally honest. Don't have a lot of time. I have a 5-year-old, and I am.
We could have a whole podcast just on that because I got one too.
I'm primarily responsible for kindergarten at the moment. My wife is in a bit more of thankfully she is working in a bit more of a job where she is busy 9 to 5, where I'm kind of like tra-la-la around the house. And, you know, I've taken on this role of kindergarten teacher, and let me tell you, photography is very, very easy compared to teaching. I just, you know, I've always had respect for teachers, but actually trying to do it is just being crazy. That has been very humbling for me.
Yeah, just to get this little time squeezed in is a juggle, because my wife luckily is still able to work from home, and she's working 9 to 5, and I'm with my 5-year-old son, my 1.5-year-old daughter, you know, and it's
been really challenging.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
But one of the things I've indulged myself in is I'd say I got this kind of mid. I've been in New York 25 years, been shooting 25 years, and digital started maybe 10 years into that. And I've been working back through from the beginning of my digital archive to kind of forward, because I'm working on this book idea that I've had in my head for 10 years, but been far too scared to actually attempt. But I felt this was a good time to start even looking at some images. And what's crazy is to go back and look at, you know, how you, going back to that time where I got to say, I really knew nothing. And looking back on some of these shoots and going, wow, if only I'd done this, if only I'd done that, if only I'd done this, how much better a picture I could have got. And then what's so weird about that is I look back at a shoot that I did last month and go, Christ, if only I'd done this, if only I'd done, it doesn't change.
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't change. You just,
yeah.
You know, you can call it in, right? You can just use your absolute go-tos and call it in and get the image, right? But every shoot you learn something. It's amazing. Photography is amazing like that.
I think that that's what compels us to do it. I've found that because it's constantly a moving and a growing entity, that it's never static, that there's always, you know, like I just say to, you know, my kind of go-to thing is like, there is never a solution, but there's always a workaround. And I think that as photographers, we have become so versatile because we're like part-time computer techs.
We've had to be, yeah.
We're psychiatrists, we're furniture movers, we're stylists, I mean, there's so many things that you have to become proficient at so that you can. What's that?
I'm a fluffer.
Ah.
How'd you get that job?
Yeah. See, is it
an emotional fluffer?
Celebrity
Yes.
fluffer.
Or maybe physical, I don't know.
Yeah. But, you know, it's amazing because it doesn't matter who you are really in photography. You know, anybody who's worth a damn has the same kind of feeling about it, that no matter how well you may have done a shoot, you can look at it and pick out 1, 2, 5, 10 things you could have done differently. And I think that's what keeps us excited. Like even at the night before a shoot, you know, you could be totally prepared, your studio set up, every light tested, batteries charged, and you're still sitting in there in your bed looking up at the ceiling thinking like, So I think that's what partly keeps us interested.
I think so, and I think also what happens a lot is, you know, the best laid plans, as you were talking about earlier. You have all these ideas. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You know, I do make a spectacular effort not to overthink, because I find when I overthink, I mess it up even more.
Right.
Through experience, I think I've got enough kind of knowledge in my head that I kind of have a concept of what I want to do, and if I overthink it, I mess it up. But then I get there and I'm like, oh shit, I really should have thought more about this. And then
I hate that feeling.
it's a complete lose situation.
So bad.
Yeah, I should have thought more. Oh shit, I overthought it. You know, it's bizarre. It's really bizarre, but I do find that the more time I have, the worse I am.
Yeah.
I find that, you know, that first couple of minutes of interaction with that person.
Yep.
You know, and it's kind of for life. It's a life thing as well. You know, I'll go into a store to buy something, and I know that I've got like 35 seconds to communicate that I'm not an idiot to whoever's serving me, kind of get that best interaction, you know. It goes through life, or, you know, get on the phone, excuse me a second, get on the phone or someone, you know, I've got like a minute to make an impression on this person to kind of have the easiest interaction for me to be. And I do it in photography all the time. And then after about maybe 3 minutes, they find out that I am a total idiot and kind of, you know, whatever. But if you can get it in the first couple of minutes, then you're like, oh, you know, and it's I find interaction with people, it doesn't matter if I have a camera in my hand or not, I'm kind of behaving the same way as I'm doing right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's so true, that you really have to, like, you know, I've said this before, it's like photography is a performance. Like, you literally have to be on stage when you're on set, whether, and on say, I'm using these terms liberally, like you could be in somebody's apartment, hotel room, it doesn't matter. You're on set, you're on stage, you are performing. And when people want to become photographers, there's so many elements to the job that people don't even realize. But if you don't have that ability, then you definitely shouldn't be shooting portraits. you know,
I
maybe.
think you can learn the ability. I mean, you know, I think there's definitely it's I think it's quite easy for me to say, you know, I do the performing monkey thing, and I look for the unexpected, and I provoke, and I do all that, and I do it, I suppose, with a little bit of knowledge that I kind of know that my light's okay, cameras fairly often the exposure is reasonable, and there's a good chance I'm kind of within focus range.
Yeah.
If I can rely on that, then I think you can focus on making an image. But I think it's important to learn that stuff first.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I've definitely been in situations where I've been photographed, and you know, if I'm, you know, one of the things I've learned, if I'm in a good mood, then the photographer is going to get great pictures, going to be
Right.
good. If I'm grumpy, or I don't want to be there, or you know my hemorrhoids are playing up, or whatever it could be, and the photographer is not working hard to get something for me, I can be an asshole and just like get nothing.
Yeah, I
So
think it's.
when I know that I've done that myself, then I totally understand what it's like for the person I'm photographing to be in a bad mood. And if you're in a bad mood, or you're having a shitty day, I have no idea what's going on with that person on that day. You got to work hard to make that little interaction and experience that you're having with them authentic and real. And then you got a fair chance of getting something reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing advice, and I think it's really rings true for any interaction, no matter what you're doing, especially in our field, because you get a subject that comes in, they had a shitty cab ride, stuck in traffic, you know, they stepped out of the cab, they stepped into a puddle, their shoe is totally soaked, their
That's
hair
it.
is wet, they got into a fight with their boyfriend, you know, beforehand, all this shit, and they drag that right in and give it right to you, and you have to be like, I'm gonna kill you with kindness, like, let's redirect, let's get something, because you know you've only got whatever you've got time wise with this person, and that's it.
The other thing you can do though in that situation is just encourage it and then get the angry photo, you know. But it's not my way, you know. I think
No.
one of the earliest, you know, piece of advice, something that runs through my head an awful lot when I'm taking photos, is, you know, it takes two people to have an argument.
Right.
So you know, it's very hard if, you know, and I think, you know, from the experience, and just the pure experience, if, you know, people are, and also, you know, and I do it, and once again I do it, so I know other people do it. People are kind of play with you a little bit, like, who is this guy? You know, I
Right.
got 5 minutes with this guy. Who is he? You know, how's he going to react if I do this? So, you know, you got to be on your toes for that as well. I mean, I've been in situations. I remember uh, uh, what's his name? D'Onofrio, Robert D'Onofrio? No,
Vincent.
Vincent. God, Vincent. One of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. And he comes in the room, and I go, "Oh, pleasure to meet you, Mr. D'Onofrio. How you doing today?" And he looks me right in the eye, and he goes, "I'm trying to make sure I get this perfect." He goes, "Look, you Irish prick. Let's just get on with it." And I go, "First of all, motherfucker, I'm Scottish. And second of all, we'll get on with it when I'm ready to get on with it."
Whoa.
And he looked at me and I looked at him. And then he had a huge, big smile and gave me a hug. He said, "You're all right."
Are you ever worried about creating relationships for the future? So you have someone come sit for you and you're like, how much do I push? How much do I pull to get what I want for this session?
I don't push a lot. I mean, I've never done. I find I get no results like that. And yeah, I mean, I've been so fortunate to photograph some people twice, 3 times, 4 times, and it's such a buzz for me when they go, "I remember you, Mark. You're all right."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that to me is such a compliment. And you know, it's very rare that I'm going to ask somebody to do something that they're uncomfortable doing. I mean, then what is it anyway? If you're uncomfortable doing it, then what's the photo? A photo of them looking uncomfortable? But if you let them, if you let people be and you just encourage and edge slightly and
Fluff, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, if I tell somebody to laugh hysterically, then it's going to look like I told them to laugh hysterically. If I get this like little opportunity to make them laugh hysterically, then it's real.
Right.
Not often that I get that chance because my humor is rotten, but you know, it makes
Vincent loves it.
Yeah.
Man, that was I thought for a second I'd really messed it up. That room went.
That pause can be really life-defining. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of celebrities, you go right to Mark Mann's website, which I select. Well, Mark Mann Photo, just in case I would suggest right now while you're listening, just pull up Mark Mann Photo, and you will be stared.
No, stop.
You'll be stared down by the incredibly handsome and brooding Adam Driver. And
interesting character.
I can only imagine. Now, he's also a tall mofo. I mean, that's
he's really interesting. He's a real deal. He was a U.S. Marine.
Yeah.
Hence, he's, I think it's kind of important to, although a lot of it is kind of, how does it feel at the time? I think that if you don't do like some basic research on whoever you're photographing, it can be an injustice. You can be doing yourself an injustice. And it's not so much so I can turn around and say, "Hey, so how was it in the Marines?" But more so to say, well, this is a guy that understands discipline. So you have a little understanding, and I think then you can show some person that some respect for who they are, or who they've come, or what they've done. And if that kind of happens to come up in conversation, great. But you want to try and avoid with the, "Oh, I loved you and so."
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely. I mean, look, I'm a huge proponent, and I recommend this to anybody who's doing a portrait, whomever they may be, whether they're a business leader or just an individual. It's like, do your research, look them up, Google them, find out as much as you can, because it might be the defining thing that allows you to have some common ground with somebody, break the ice if things aren't really kind of moving, whatever. And, celebrities, yes, they make a living acting, but when they're hanging out, they're people. It's not like they're like, "Oh, let's talk about my film work." They want to shoot the shit. Just like
I always thought it would be funny. You when you go and you want to, even on a friend level, you're in a group with friends. Someone walks in, you're like, "Okay, I know who that person is." You don't want to be you want to put yourself on a level with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, if Tom Cruise walks in, and some reason you got introduced, you're like, "What's your name?" If you ask, like, "What's your name?" No one fucking asks Tom Cruise what his name is. Everyone knows. So you kind of like.
I have a good way of dealing with that. It's I always and I always do it to this day, and I think it comes from my upbringing. but I never call people by their first name. It's always Mr. Cruz.
Hmm.
You know, so, oh, Mr. Cruz, it's so good to meet you. And sometimes they kind of dig it and they go, call me Tom. And sometimes the whole session is just Mr. Cruz. And then there was that time I photographed Bill Murray. And I said, Mr. Murray, it's such a pleasure. He goes, call me doctor. Call me doctor. That's funny, Mr. Murray. He goes, Dr. Murray. And for an hour, if I referred to him as anything else apart from Dr. Murray, he corrected me. So,
but you have that nice accent. Americans can't pull that off.
No, yeah.
Americans can't do that.
But yeah, that is a kind of weird one when somebody walks into the room. But also, I think people, you know, like Tom Cruise, whatever. But I don't know. They often kind of say their name to avoid that weird thing.
Yeah.
They're like, hi, you know, hi, I'm Tom Cruise. You go, yeah.
Yeah, you won't be doing a lot of handshaking anytime soon.
Oh, that's right. There's no more handshaking.
Not even
now you can actually say, who are you? Because they'll be like, you know.
They'll have a mask and
big glasses and
yeah. Do you think we're ever going to get back to that kind of I know that's one of the things that kind of scares me is, you know, so many of my portraits are close up, and
yeah,
I like the intensity of the camera being really close to somebody. I just don't know if anyone's ever going to let me do that again.
I mean, one of the things that I love about your style is this incredibly close-up, intimate view right into the eyes of the subject, pretty much at eye level, from what I can tell. And there's something really special. Like, you really feel like drawn in and close. It's a lot to do with the moment that you're capturing with these people. It's a lot to do with the way that you're shooting them, with the incredibly shallow depth of field, you know, and the level of detail that you have in your photographs, that you're obviously shooting with medium format. So there's a whole combination of things here between the methodology and the technical. The confluence of these things really defines what I think to be the Mark Mann look. I mean, there's definitely something like when I'm like just scrolling through and I see your shit, I'm like, whoops, stop.
Yep. You know when you come across one of your photos.
Right.
In a good way.
Yeah. You know, I'm like looking at these photos of Maggie Gyllenhaal, and you know, I kind of want to just take a moment and just sigh, because there's something so nice. There's a connection that I'm feeling just looking at her, the way she's looking at you through the camera, like it's real. There's a real feeling there. There's a sense of connection, and
you got to make that happen. That's the thing that doesn't happen by itself. You got it. You have to make that happen. That's and that's what's interesting about looking back on, you know, some of my earlier work from the archive, where, you know, I may have chosen a photo for the art for whatever that time was that I thought was a great photo, and now going back to it, I go, I can't believe that I didn't choose that picture, because the connection was that picture. So that's what's been really interesting, and that's kind of maybe what I'm thinking about the hook for this book that I'm struggling with is that I think I've always made the connection, but to be brutally honest, I didn't even know that was a thing, and didn't appreciate it until later on in my career, if that makes sense. It was all about the image and the graphic. And
I think that's so true. I mean, look, I look at it back, you know, I was formerly a professional musician, and when I first started playing as a lead guitar player, because, you know, as a photographer, you're kind of like the lead photographer, you're like the star, kind of the melodic, you know, component in the set. I was always like, I wanted to just be heard, and I would overplay, and I would do, and then I listened back to things that I did, and the bits that are subtle, that are more kind of ethereal and melodic, that kind of layer in there, that enhance the beauty of whatever the piece is, instead of jumping out and smacking you across the face. Those are the best bits. And thankfully I learned over time to really move in that direction. And I think it's true with photography too. It's like when we're younger and starting out, we want to just show off, like, hey, look what I can do. I can take a pretty picture and the lighting's perfect. And then you go back and you're like, no, 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 no. The 1-2 frames back, that's the essence. That's the connection. That's when that subject was really with me.
You totally nailed it, Adam. It's amazing. I thought I was the only man in the world to think that, but you totally nailed it. Totally nailed it. I mean, that's exactly what it is.
I was a rhythm guitar player professionally, and I love being in the opposite. You know, I was never like during sound check you could just blow your load. You know, some people, and you're like, great, wonderful, you're a fucking good guitar player. Like, congratulations. You know, you're sound checking. But that also translates to my photography and my styles. I'd rather be, a lot of times I'd rather be a fly on the wall with a camera. And that relates to how I played music, and I never thought about it until this second. And that's sort of my performance is almost like a lot of times if you don't see me, then I'm happy I did my job.
That really does ring true. I mean, Daniel's style is like he's always there, but he's not like in your fucking face.
Right.
Because if I'm shooting my my friends, musicians, and people are coming in the room and they're not coming in to have their photo taken. They're coming in to be with their friends. And so I have to work hard to sort of be in the background, but also be part of the conversation at times. And that's sort of a balance. If I'm doing a proper shoot in a studio, wherever I am, people are coming in knowing they're being photographed. But if they're just at a show hanging out, or at a friend's apartment, it's that fine line of, do I pick my camera up, or am I getting paid to pick my camera up? And I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, but
there is that fine line. I definitely agree. And Mark, you're dealing with celebrities. You're dealing with iconic people, celebrity. Like, look, I mean, we're not going to beat around the bush. Go to Mark's site, you will recognize probably 90% of the people on his site, and some of them will hit you immediately because you'll be like, that's so-and-so. And you'll be like, oh yeah, I know them from this or that, whether they're, media or actors, whatever. So they are accustomed to performing. Like, their entire existence is based on performance. When they're not performing, some people that are, in this capacity, they're always on if they're in public. Some people, they turn it off, and
But what I really try to do is get through the performance, and then get that try and go for the authentic moment. So some people you just can't. Not you. I mean, I wasn't able to get through it. I got a beautiful shot somewhere of Jennifer Aniston. It's a lovely shot. It's in focus, which is unusual for me. It's well lit. The exposure's correct. All the elements are correct. But you know what's not great about it? There was no connection, because she is so guarded and such a professional.
Right.
I mean, maybe if I had more time, or maybe if I was someone different. And she was not to say she wasn't nice. She was lovely. I mean, I had a lovely experience with her, but I came away thinking, you know what? I didn't get through. And that was a failure to me. Even though it's a really popular picture, it did really well. But for me, personally, it was kind of a failure.
I mean, I hate that feeling when, you're with a subject and you really want to connect, and you're going through your little repertoire, boom, boom, boom. All these things typically get people to loosen up, and you've done your research and you ask them about whatever that thing is. And there's just nothing. It's a shit feeling. It's like going on a date. It's like the person, like, you're being you, and you're being calm, and you're being receptive, and you're opening up, and they're just completely shut off, even though they're lovely and pleasant. It's a shitty feeling because you walk away feeling like, I didn't really ever get there. It's like, but look, I don't want to focus on the negative. I mean, looking at your work, I would say that
it's not negative. It's just what it is. But I think one of the other ways that I look at photography and the photos I take is not by looking at the photos, because when what I'm left with, when all's said and done, I mean, sometimes people even pay me to take photographs. So there's, there's the money that pays for stuff.
Yep.
But genuinely, what I'm left with is the interaction with that person.
Uh-huh.
And to me, that is becoming even more important than the images. So it's the memories. It's it's having the opportunity to interact with some of the most incredible people that have done incredible things. I mean, what kind of makes my career and makes my living is the celebrity. But I had an opportunity as a young photographer to photograph the playwright Arthur Miller, which I was super excited about because he was one of my favorites, and I got to spend some time with him. And I made a kind of rookie mistake there. I mean, I think we're talking like 20, over 20 years ago. And I asked him, I started off talking about Death of a Salesman, and I bored the pants off him. I could just see him when I talk about it. And then, I mentioned Marilyn Monroe, and he gave me a break, and he kind of told me some Marilyn Monroe stories. And it was a rookie mistake, and I would never do that again now. But the photos are pretty crap. But what I do have is that interaction with Arthur Miller. And, if I can try and keep that in my head as I move forward, then I find now that the better the interaction, then the better the photograph now. And all I'm really left with is that interaction.
So you need to
a reasonable image.
So you have you were talking about, you have the technical side, then you have the interaction side. And when those two go perfectly together, that's when you'd say you're the happiest with walking out of a session.
Correct.
Saying those two things line up. And I think that's so important, and something that kind of what I was alluding to in the beginning, where, I've never been on set with you, not obviously, but I've never been on set with you. I don't see how you interact. Some photographers like that we've talked to and that I know like to, get things out of their subjects, push them, or get them to react certain ways. And you're into cultivating relationships, because people will remember you not only because of your fantastic photos, but they like you as a person, and they remember.
That's the goal. Yeah.
The interaction.
That's the goal. I mean, I've been on set with, and I'm not going to mention who, and so he was a really disgusting mood. I don't know what was going on with him. And I just, I remember I said to him, hey, let's be brutally honest. I don't want to be here. You don't want to be here. We both got some work to do. We get it done. We can both get out of here. How about we just kind of do it? Or something in these words. And I got a smile for about 30 seconds. And I got the photo, and they said, we got it. Let's go home. And he gave me a hug. Said, good man.
That's good, though, for you to be that kind of relaxed in your brain. And
I'm not. Oh God.
Or at least you're able to go and cut through all that bullshit and go to the place where you need to rein it in, and you have the foresight to do it, and you have the balls. Maybe it's because of your Scottish upbringing.
It's the accent.
Yeah. Well,
you can get away with so much more.
Exactly. You can get away with it because it's adorable.
Americans are assholes. We're dicks. We're uncultured.
We're so full of ourselves. No, I mean, like,
but it's not, it's not, I mean, there's not, I have butterflies before every shoot.
That's beautiful. I love that. Me too.
I mean, I'm not, there's nothing, and there's no, I'm nervous before every shoot. I mean, sometimes I even have this now. I've kind of said this before. I kind of have this weird outer body experience where I'm floating above myself, watching this guy below me taking photos of somebody, whether it's a president or a top athlete, and I'm going, wow, how's he doing that? I wish I could do that. And it's actually me, and it's really bizarre, because I just don't believe that in any way I have the ability to actually do what I do sometimes. And I think that's what gives me the butterflies, that one day I'll get there, and I just won't know what I'm doing or how to do it.
That's the best mentality.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you woke up and you went to your studio and you're like, I got this, who'd want to work with you? They'd be like, this guy's a freaking asshole. And I remember when I first was cutting my teeth doing this stuff, I met photographers like that. They were just so freaking full of themselves and so confident, not even confident. They're just assholes. And I was just like, I mean, I remember I was at a barbecue at my buddy's place, and like I was kind of just getting started, and this dude's been at it for a while, and I literally, like, my buddy had to like separate me from his friend because I was ready to freaking, and I'm not a violent dude at all. Like, I'm chill. But
You
I
don't
don't
seem
think
chill.
what's that?
Like, I'm a chill dude, man. I promise.
Yeah, I'm totally
Fucking
fine.
chill.
But no, I'm not into that kind of thing. But it just, that kind of attitude just really wears me down. And there are photographers that are like that are just very pushy. They're like, stand here, move that, turn to your right. They're just like, they bark at people.
Let me tell you something. There's a lot of people that have suggested to me over my career that I might have done better if I was more of an asshole.
You're like, I'm doing okay, thank you.
No, I'm not being funny in that. It's like, there's that certain, maybe it's an 80s thing or a 90s thing, maybe it doesn't really exist anymore. But there was that certain idea of a photographer, the way they reacted, and maybe the respect that they commanded in some kind of, maybe it was fear, but there was this certain thing about, and I never wanted to be like that. And I definitely came up assisting some photographers that were like that. And it never appealed to me, and it was never how I wanted to be. But, I've got a few friends that came up with me that kind of got into that and are that kind of photographer. And I just wonder if I had that attitude, and, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that, and I'm in charge and you have no say. If what would have happened. I don't think photographers can get away with it anymore.
No.
Because like so much has changed, but it was definitely a way. And I remember making a decision that I did not want to be that guy. I never wanted to be. If ever I got in a position where I could actually have some authority, I always wanted to kill him with kindness. And
I think that's
well, you kill him with your work, and that demands respect. And then, I mean, I think as a blanket statement, and then if you're a nice guy and go about it the right way and good to people remember, that's the way you want to have people remember you.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I think is kind of detrimental, and the one thing that I think, with my photo assistants, you're working with somebody day in, day out, super close. And I'm a great admirer of, well, for many reasons, I'm a great admirer of my wife, but for one reason that is relevant here is that she always manages to separate church and state, right? She has her work, and that's very, very important, but the bottom line is she doesn't bring it home. She doesn't bring the people that she works with home. She really manages to keep that separate and keep so many of her work relationships super professional. Whereas if I'm working with you day in and day out, you become my friend and a confidant and somebody who I talk to and listen to. And unfortunately, I mean, recently now it's been okay, but there's definitely people whose relationships that at some point it's like, well, how can you work? You can't work for me, and we're not a team, because ultimately I'm responsible here, and it's my fault that you think that you are part of this. So that's where it's kind of been detrimental, that I've just, maybe some people that I would like to be friends with that worked for me, the relationship dissolves because I'm not like a boss. And that's one thing that I would like to try and work on with me a little more. Does that
I
make
think
sense?
that's really well put, and I completely agree. Like, look, in production, we're everyone refers to it as their family. It's like, great working with this family. Like, you go on set for a week with 12 people, and you get to know those people in a way that you didn't know them before then, and you're
Correct.
spending 20 well, apart from sleeping, which you do very little when you're in a situation like that. You're having every meal, you're working all day, you're traveling to and from places, you're every little minute is with these people. So you're going to develop a level of intimacy with them that you're not going to have with your work associate while you go back and forth to each other's offices, other sides of the. But I mean, it's a totally, and there's also, in our creative world, there's a lot more vulnerability. We're sharing things on a very different level. It's not a qualitative
It's like with
statement.
tour, when I just relate that to touring, when I toured for 10 years and 8-9 months out of the year, and the crew you have, the tour manager, the merch, whoever, they're in a
They're your
bad mood, they're in a
family.
fight, they're your family. You fight, you get over it, you work it out, but there is that fine line where I am your boss, I am responsible for you. you know where's that line of family, friends, work? And some people say you don't mix friends and work, you don't mix family and work. I've always worked with when I've collaborated, it's always with my best friends.
Right.
And you butt heads, but then but then it's all
You
good.
have to have a good line of communication. You have to be able to talk about things.
And some people I don't think can do it.
Yeah.
I think it's not for some people.
The only people that I've had to kind of get, let go of in my career are people that just didn't have the capacity to learn and to talk and to kind of move past things, that, just wanted to hold too steadfast to whatever their point of view was. And I don't think there's any room for that when you're in photography, when you have a small crew. Everyone has to kind of toe the line and be humble.
Yeah, I think so. And the bottom line is, it's I hold myself responsible for it.
Yeah.
It's
Well, it comes
not.
down on you.
Yeah.
It's your name. It's your brand.
But I got that's the bottom line. Is the bottom line is, it's my name. And thankfully, though, I think I've come full circle with a lot of people that I've been in that position with, and I'm much happier, and now we're friends, and that's where we're at.
I think there's that also fine line. You have to be careful and not let your friends take advantage. I mean, I had a situation years ago on set with an assistant who he was just having a freaking meltdown. I mean, he was impetuous. He was impossible. He wouldn't take direction from anybody. He wouldn't even communicate. Like, if you were talking to him, he was just so closed into himself. And I literally had to remove him from the set, and I was like, dude, you need to, like, literally just take a half an hour, go around the block, have a cigarette or 10, and come back when you've kind of, like, when you can come back to earth. But if you didn't have that intimate relationship with them, you wouldn't be able to talk to them, So I think that, because what you're doing when you're connected, like, okay, I'm looking at Woody Harrelson right now and Aaron Paul. I mean, what a combination to have sitting next to each other. And Woody's,
high as a kite.
He's obviously, but when you've got somebody like that in your studio, you don't have time to have somebody who's in a bitchy mood, who's not with you, who's not pulling their weight, who's trying to dump their shit. Like, as the performer, as the prime mover of this operation and the photographer, you can't have any of these things impeding your ability to get your work done. And that's a huge thing.
So I've been going on shoots by myself.
Oh, that's bold.
And I love the intimacy of it. And, when I did the Esquire, the Woody Harrelson and the Aaron Paul actually I think I had an assist. I can't remember. With these 80 portraits, I traveled a lot, and sometimes I was by myself. Sometimes I picked up a local assistant, but a lot of these I absolutely did myself. And there was something so liberating and lovely about that. I remember I went to Bradley Cooper's house, and was by myself, and to do that style of portrait. And this guy opened the door, and he said, "Can you set up in the garage?" I said, "Sure." And I set up my little setup in the garage, and he came in. And he's like, "You by yourself?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, cool." And that changed our dynamic.
Yeah.
And that changed that he didn't have a publicist there. I didn't have an assistant. It was just two
guys
guys
hanging out.
I'm taking your photo, and we finished the shoot, and he said, "You want to grab a beer?" I said, "Sure." And he invited me into the house. We made a couple of beers, and I ended up missing my flight back to New York, but that's another story. And that kind of level of intimacy can only really happen if there's nobody else there.
Yeah.
Right. As soon as you bring in the publicist and my assistant, and then there's the power plays between, this and this and this, and the publicist over your shoulder. But when you get that rare opportunity, I mean, that's why I love to photograph anyone, any face, because sometimes, when I go to shoot like somebody that's not a celebrity, I'm just seeing what my dog's killing in the swimming pool. You get that intimacy of just you and that person. It's just a conversation. It's like grabbing a coffee, and then the camera comes up for a few minutes, and we do our job, and then the camera goes down, and the conversation carries on.
So
that to me is the ultimate.
Yeah, and I know all these thoughts are flying everywhere.
Yeah. You go,
right,
Adam.
Dan, you
no,
go.
you got it.
Come on.
I might be going left for a minute, so if
That's
you want
all
to stand,
you take it.
I want to get into. You talking about my camera comes up and then I put it back down. I want to, because Adam and I have a mutual love of Leica, and most to all things Leica. And I find that for me, I've gravitated most of my career to certain cameras, and you are in the Leica world, and I guess represent them in a way by that's the gear of your choice. And I sort of want to dive into your headspace and see why you use certain cameras, and what it does for you. And sometimes in those moments where you're not having assistance, you're having a more personal interaction, how that plays a role.
The Leica thing is a pretty easy story. You take it back to starting to shoot digital, and the camera that I kind of gravitated towards at the beginning of the digital thing was a Contact 645, because the Leaf Aptus made a 11 megapixel digital back. It was a story about I needed to do a shoot, needed to get done, and this is the camera I rented, and then I bought one, and then I kind of fell in love with the Leaf 645, the Contact 645 camera. I liked it. I kind of moved down from an RZ. It felt easier to manage. I kind of loved it. I had lenses for it. And then that was my camera of choice. And then basically Contacts went out of business, and I couldn't get them repaired fast enough. Mine were so old and broken, and their bodies, and they had to send it to Japan every 5 minutes, and it was like, I need a new camera system. What am I going to do? And I had basically, a lovely set of glass for my contacts. And a friend of mine called me and said, "Have you looked at the Leica new medium format? Because they make an adapter ring that's going to work with all your contacts glass." Like, oh, that's interesting. Leica? Doctors, lawyers? Anyway, phoned up Photo Care in New York City, who are wonderful, but with this Leica thing, can we talk about it? The adapter. We said, you know what? There's a medium format. There's a product specialist. she'll come into the store and she'll show you what she's talking about. So I've never had this before. Somebody's actually going to talk to me about my camera, apart from the guy that works in the store. So I went in the store and I met with a product specialist, and it was this beautiful, it was the original S body, and we had an adapter ring, and I put all my contacts lenses on it, and it felt good. And I made the decision, right, okay, so all I got to do is buy a body and not new glass. So I had the Leica body and the contacts lenses. And I remember doing my first couple of shoots with it and looking at the files, going, wow, there's something really interesting about the colors and the files. And I called this product specialist at Leica and said, listen, I'm really impressed with this. So what's going on? Why are these so good? And I started going in a little further and deeper. And she said to me, have you tried a Leica lens on that camera? I said, no, I don't own one. So she lent me the 120 millimeter portrait lens, and I did a shoot with it. And at that point, I just saw this huge difference in before and after. It's like, before Christ, BC and AD. Like for me, it's like BL and AL. And all of a sudden, I'm taking digital photographs that look to me like I could have shot them on film, which was something that was really missing for me in the digital world. This digital world is wonderful for so many reasons. But one thing I really gave up was this ability to feel and handle like film. And the Leica did it for me. And this, the 120 lens was a great replacement for the Contax 80, 1.8. But all of a sudden my portraits had the depth that I didn't know I could obtain. And I was sold and hooked, and I still have that lens. And I think it's I only have one medium format Leica lens, and it's my go-to. And I just, there's something about the way the Leica lens, the glass works with whatever magic that they put on the sensor that just to me makes an image that I haven't.
And that was the original SO. It was a CCD sensor, right?
It was a CCD sensor, which I still have. Because
Is it corroded?
About the CCD sensor that I like better than the CMOS sensor. But I mean,
Well, Adam and I talk about that with the M9 versus the later iterations of how beautiful just that CCD color, the Leica CCD colors are. It's unmatched, and you can get more versatility and more bells and whistles and all these things. But at the end of the day, I love the look of film, the feel of film, the textures, and I've never shot with the S, but for my usage, that the M9 with the CCD really is a home run.
So Mark, you're not using the original S. You're using the current S2 or 3.
I changed from the S, and then I got the S2, which was the CCD sensor, and then
the 007.
Recently I got a 007,
right,
which is the CMOS sensor with the bigger file size. No, is it a bigger file size? I can't remember. It's so irrelevant, the file size.
Right.
It's faster. The reason I use it is because the camera is faster, the focus faster, and the higher ISOs.
And do you miss the CCD, or are you just past it now?
No, if I feel that I have, I always can kind of compare it to like, horses for courses. The S is not for every job, and the CCD sensor is not for every shoot. So if the conditions are right, and let's just use the CCD. But often it's like, yeah, I might have to use 400 ISO or 800 ISO. I'm going to go with the CMOS. But it's still my baby, and I still love it. It's the first inanimate object I've truly loved since I was a kid.
That's so great.
It's camera. Like I had so many RZs. I mean, I never named my RZ.
Is that 120 still your go-to lens? The same one?
The 120 is my go-to. It's the lens.
And it's the same one. You haven't changed. That's amazing.
What's the aperture on that? The fixed aperture?
Oh God, now you're asking me. I think
Is
it's
it an
F2.
f4?
F2.
F2. Wow, that's
I have to
shallow.
check that. But I
Yeah.
think if you were if on a I think, as I say, I'm so technically. If you put that on a 35, would it not equal like 1.4,
Yeah.
1.8?
If it
Or
was a
something?
2, something like that,
Like
yeah.
I'm looking right now at this photograph of Michael Keaton, and the focus is just so gorgeous. The eyes look incredible, and it's shallow enough that like just the tip of the nose is a little bit out, which is just a great look. But the eyes are the eyes. Um,
But
and
there's quite a lot of shots there where the eyes aren't even in focus.
well, whatever. I mean,
Not
they're,
on purpose.
yeah, but I'm not worried about that technically so much. I'm more intrigued by the look because I love this look, and I have gone back and forth over the years with medium format. I currently don't have a medium format system. I've been thinking about the S system for a while, and when we met at that Leica event with the SL2, you said, "Hey, why don't you come over to my studio and
Yeah.
try out the S?" And by the time I had time to do it and wanted to do it, obviously we were in isolation. But that is something that I'm really greatly thinking of because I've become very fascinated with the whole Leica ecosystem and their color science. And truly, what it comes down to is their lenses look unlike any other kind of look that you are going to get out there. So
Yeah, I mean, listen, and we all know if you've got a reasonable photographer with a reasonable camera, you can get a great picture.
true.
What we're looking at is that difference between, and I even, it's embarrassing to say it because I'm very rarely at 90%, but if you get it perfect, if you get it really, really right with the Leica compared to another camera, you go from that 90 to 94%. You know what I mean? But you're
Like the
talking.
way you talk about the Leica S is like, I hold the M body and I just feel something.
Just to kind of put a fine point on it, I had a Hasselblad medium format system. I had actually a couple, and then I went for the Hasselblad with the phase one back, and then I had the leaf back on the phase body, and blah 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 blah. Tried out the Fuji system, but I'm just at this point where I don't have a system like that for portraiture right now. And I have felt a huge chasm, like there's a gap. And I have a mirrorless SLR system, whatever. It's fine. It does the job. It focuses perfectly. It lights it does everything well, but it
There's
has no,
something about the files that you just you know I, it's any medium format. I mean, let's take Leica off the page for a second. You shoot with a great 35 mirrorless like the SL2 or the Nikons or the Canons, and the images are beautiful, the lenses are beautiful, and you're like, wow, this file is really great. Wow, 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 wow. And then you do a shoot for some reason with your medium format and you go, aha, and you can't get away from it. I mean,
yeah.
I love the SL2. I'm using it right now. I love it. It's
Oh, that
so
explains the focus issues.
Yeah. There you go. It just can't get it. All you see is a big rectangle. There's no.
I think it's something to do with the video out through the Black Magic thing. That I don't know. I'm going to look into it. But there's something about the medium format, even going back to my film, scanning 35 millimeter film, great shots. You scan in medium format, or even, 4x5 I didn't shoot so much of, but you scan in medium format, and there's something about it.
I'm doing that now a lot at home. I'm developing and scanning 35 120 film, and there's just that. You scan that 120, you look at even when it's drying and it's hanging, and you're seeing the size of that negative compared to the 35. You're like, it's special.
That's what it is. It's something about the medium format sensor or the medium format film that is just different.
But you love the SL2?
Oh my God, yeah.
Did you love the SL?
Yep. Well, I've never had a camera that had any functions before. So, for so much of my career, the only thing I adjusted, I mean, I shot so much strobe, right? So shutter speed was always at 125.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you go back to films days, I had no ISO setting. It was whatever was in the camera. So the only setting on the camera that I used for anything was aperture, right? So that's how I was used to that. I'd see all these cameras. They don't have functions. I'm like, what do you need functions for? And then, I got an SL1 and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I can move that little thing over and press there and that's where it will focus. That's amazing. And I got deep into the functions and the user profiles. And wow, if I want to do a black and white shot and I want it like this, you've got a user one, blah, 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 blah. And I absolutely like, wow, it was like a kid in a candy store because I'd never done it before. So, and also it kind of forced me into taking photos in a different way, which I loved. And then the SL2 is the same but faster. The one thing, and I'm sorry, Leica people, I love you. The one thing I don't need is more megapixels. So if I could have an SL2 with less megapixels, I'd be happy.
You can have the SL.
Yeah, but the SL2, the focus is faster. The feel, I mean, it's just different. The video on the SL2 is exceptional.
Yeah, but if you didn't have your S system, then you'd be welcoming to that, right? You'd be more welcoming to the 40 something megapixels.
The S system is always where I want to be. But it's like trying to, sometimes with the S system, depending on the job, it's like trying to fit a rectangle into a square. Like, I really want to use this camera, but it's not the right tool for the job.
So you're shooting with the SL2 on a lot of jobs now as well, or
I am, especially when I talk about going out by myself.
what's the go-to lens on that puppy for you?
The fixed. I have two lenses actually. I have a fixed 75.
That's
which is
amazing.
lovely, and I have a 90 that's an M lens.
Mm-hmm. A current Diapo?
It's not a. Excuse my technical. It's the mid-range one.
Like the Sumerit, the 2.5.
Summicron.
Yeah, the 2.0. 2.0.
That's a great lens. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a beautiful lens. And these are my two go-tos. And there's something which I've really got into, like the compromise with the SL is, one of the things I like about the S is it's still, I'm quite slow because I'm composing and focusing and getting the focus right. The SL2, you could just hold your finger down and it does everything perfectly. But if I use the M lens and I have to manually focus, it slows me down enough to keep me centered. Is that the right word?
And you also, from what I've seen, you use a lot of continuous light, like the roto lights.
A lot of continuous light. Something also that's new to me. I came up shooting a lot of hip hop, and the kind of system of shooting I developed was that people were moving so fast. It was kind of before autofocus, so like an RZ with a standard 80 before autofocus, and people were moving so fast, and opportunities were to happen so quickly that I thought the only way to capture this is f32. So because that means if I miss focus, I still got some of your focus. So kind of my go-to was f32, as much light as humanly possible, so I could keep shooting and focus and capture something and get some of these moments that happened. And then when kind of, I suppose, who I was photographing changed and things slowed down, I was like, oh, what happens at the other end of the f-stop spectrum? And I think, at some point I was like, oh, no, that's wide open. Oh, wide open. And then now it's like, I don't shoot anything that isn't wide open. There's horses for courses. I mean, I might go back. I mean, I don't know. right now it's what I love. And
Adam got me into we get each other into different systems, the different lenses, different cameras. He got me into the SL, and it came with the 24-90, and I'm not a zoom shooter. And from day one, I wanted to love that camera so bad, and I didn't. I never really gelled with it. Some of the shots I got, because I'm primarily an M shooter, I just have different M bodies and glass. So partially the size of that 24-90 was, enormous. It was 2.8 to f4, and I don't love shooting at f4. It's, I'd rather be wide open whenever I can, and wide open as shallow as possible. The size of it compared to my M bodies, having one on each shoulder. And if I shoot, if I do a good amount of weddings, so I'm always walking around for 10, 12, 13 hours a day. And I was like, if I'm going to have something this size, I want it to be a medium format. I don't want, and so I got rid of it, and the SL2, but it sort of comes back in my mind because I think to do it right, you need like the primes that you have, the primes, the Leica primes.
That 24-90 for me was like having 3 primes.
People say that. I never.
I gelled with that camera completely.
M shooters a whole year. M shooters, man. You guys focus and shit.
It's not easy.
You street guys are out there with focusing and stuff. I mean,
he's shooting weddings with that with the M cameras.
I mean, I
moments.
have a friend who's probably going to be deeply embarrassed when I say this because he kind of hates this stuff. His name is Rob Rice, and he is a creative director that I love and adore, and has been, learning to take photographs over the last few years. And his first camera was an M. And we've done car shoots together where I've done the video, hanging out of cars, shooting other cars. And what he could do with that M, because that's what he learned on. And I'm like, how are you getting anything in focus?
It's not easy.
I'm just blown away. And, I remember having to focus from RZ days, but anyone that's using an M, it's a whole.
Well, I will say a rangefinder I find is much easier than an SLR or an RZ type of focus. Have you ever thought of putting a Noctilux on your SL2?
He's done it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm throwing it out there.
I don't own the lens, and I can't afford one. And I know if I fall in love with it, I'm gonna have to sell my child to buy one. So
that's why I have 2 kids. Yeah. You sell one of them.
But to get back to that M thing, the M to the SL thing, it's I think it's too easy for guys like you. I think part of shooting the M is a challenge, and people who do it well are amazing. And then I think if I give you an SL, then it's almost like giving you a cell phone. Does that make sense?
It's too computerized.
100%. But it's I have like 1,000 things running through my mind as you said that. That's how I feel about a Sony. And, I think the SL has the soul, the colors, but there was something I am just not, when I had that huge 24-90.
You got to get past
and the zoom. I couldn't, if I, when I put a 51.4 on there or my M glass, I was like, this is fucking awesome. You can focus peak, and I love a good autofocus camera just like the next person. But I thought from an investment standpoint, to get the lenses that I wanted to get the most out of the camera was out of my reach.
So for me, sorry, you go ahead.
No, I'm just saying for me, coming from an S with a 120mm lens, the SL felt like a toy.
I know.
No, it was so fast.
That's how I feel about the CL. I added a CL recently, just out of sheer curiosity, and I am fucking blown away by what I get out of that. I've tried APS-C size cameras before.
Yeah, Mark, the quality of the images that Dan has been sending me, You would not believe that it's a cropped 24 megapixel sensor. I mean, the level of
the CL is a serious camera.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
But just back to the SL for one sec. So what really got up my jock was the fact that the freaking thing could not tether. I could not get my SL to tether. And
Fixed.
What's that?
Fixed with the SL2.
Well, as long as you say that, because I got so fed up like an idiot.
So
I dumped all my SL gear. I had 4 batteries. I had the M to L adapter. I had a bunch of lenses, all the stuff that's expensive to add to the system. I literally was like, I was so fed up because of a few jobs where that camera let me down. I'm on the phone with my Leica rep and he's like, let me see if I can get another camera for you. And I'd be like in Boston, he'd be like, what's that?
It wasn't the camera.
It was the operator. It was obviously me. I suck.
No. It was the. I can actually go into detail about what it was because I've had talks. See, because I had the same problems. I mean, but I had a long talk with Adobe about it. I had a long talk with Leica, with the young man who came in and fixed it, and I agree with you. It was a disaster with the SL. It really was a disaster. The SL2, and you were there when I was shooting the SL2. It was seamless. It's fixed.
And I remember we were talking about it quite extensively. And you're like, yeah, I'm doing these things and I'm going, in DC and Boston, whatever. And it's just been flawless. And that was early days. So look,
the SL one was a disaster. There was no right reason. One of the interesting things that could have been the problem is, or one of the fixes was if you actually tethered with an M lens, because one of the reasons who knows, one of the issues could have been
power consumption.
Autofocus pulled so much power.
Yeah.
That
that's
when
been
you
a huge deal.
Something weird happened and a bus shut off, and it was enough time that it caused the computer to glitch, so it wouldn't send the image, and that froze everything. So one of the fixes I had for a long time before the SL2 was I used M lenses on the SL, and I could tether fairly seamlessly. And that was.
Where were you when I needed this help?
But the SL2 is absolutely seamless.
All
it's
right.
super, super fast. I use Lightroom, and I use Lightroom for a lot of reasons instead of Capture. We can get into that if you want, but it's seamless, and I have no issues in it.
Well, that's it. I just I'm officially broke because Mark just helped me spend 20 grand.
Well,
so
no, on this show we got to get our guests to spend the money.
That's the caveat. Yeah, now Mark, you actually are on the hook for buying me an SL system.
You need the Noctilux. Mark needs the Noctilux, and we need.
If you're listening, Mark needs a Noctilux.
All right.
Needs an SL2.
So all of our sponsors out there, just hear this right now. There's a lot of things that are very critical to our careers that need to be satisfied.
Yeah, I'll do a lot better. I'll take a lot better photographs if I have a $10,000 lens.
Yeah.
$10,000 lens.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, look, I would love to get back into the SL system, and I think I probably have been leaning that way. I've been kind of vacillating between a bunch of different things, and the Sony is fine. Like just even as a video camera, I mean, just to do
fabulous camera.
I don't love the image quality. I don't love the image quality. I don't love the color, and I have no love for it at all.
But it'll grab that eyeball like that.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous.
It focuses
like. It grabs shit that you think, yeah, there's no way. I'll just take a bunch of them and maybe one will be there. And you go back in the computer and like every freaking one of them's in focus. The couple, like I did this shoot of like this couple, and like at the very end of the shoot, I was like, let's just have you guys jumping, and because it was a little serious before, and I'm like, I didn't really think about it much. And I'm like, I'll just take like 10 or so frames. And like, if we get one, that's it. Every fucking frame was absolutely 100% tack sharp.
Great. But which were the ones that you sent to me and you were like, these are fucking awesome pictures?
The ones that I shot with my M9.
Yeah.
Well, you see, but that's also a really, really
There you go.
important factor. Is that you can't, if you're trying to do that, if you're like a sports photographer, or if that's critical to you, if that's what's critical, that you have that sharpness, if that's what it's all about for you, and it is for certain people, and of course it is, then don't go buy a Leica.
No. Look, I'm a
No,
portrait.
what happened, I actually walked into my local shop and I was like, let me see the SL2. And my son was sitting on a stool, not moving, and it would not focus. I had a Leica Prime on, and it just would not focus. And I stood there for 5 minutes, yeah, then I got it. And then the big rectangle, the small rectangle, the back, and coming off of the bad taste from the SL, I was like, this is just more of the same.
It's
But
like
it's not fair. I didn't have a good,
No,
I can't put myself in these shoes, because critical focus is not important to me. Speed shooting is not important to me. And I understand the frustration that people have, but my answer, and I've said it, is you got to find the camera that works for what you do.
Yeah.
You can't force what you do into the you can't buy the camera and then what you do is what you do. I mean,
No, the SL was the camera that I mean, it in my view, before the SL2,
it spoke to
it
you.
was the best mirrorless camera that had ever been made. Like I put it up to my eye and I looked through that electronic viewfinder, and then I took a few photos, and I was like, oh my God, everything's amazing. And I feel connected to it, and I love the color science. And so hearing what you're saying about the SL2, I feel like, I've been really waiting a long time to have a chat like this, because I need to talk to people that are working professionals that are using equipment. I don't want to see or hear some fucking camera reviewer. God bless you guys. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thanks for the promotion.
But I need to talk to somebody who actually shoots with this thing for a living in different situations, because the tethering thing threw me off so much, and I was so disgusted. I ran. But now I'm happy to kind of revisit it, because I'm just not happy, and I want to love the imagery that I'm creating.
Look, as I said to you, and when I met you, and I meant it from the bottom of my heart, when this shit's over, come on over. We'll go through the S. We'll go through the SL2.
I would love it.
Oh, Adam will have an SL2 way before this is over.
Huh?
Adam already has B&H's site pulled up. He's got the
stop.
Yeah. You'll get him into the S system.
We'll get John.
You'll get me into the S system.
We'll get Big John to come over.
Okay.
And,
can we film it?
Either your brains or your signature will be on the contract.
I think that and like a pint of blood.
Well,
hey Mark, question for you, man. So I'm looking through your icons photos here, and this is one of the most congenial photos of Obama I think I've ever in my life seen. And I know he's a congenial guy, but you got him to lighten up like a Christmas tree, which is obviously testament to your style. But how did that shoot go? Because I've heard that these shoots are like 4 minutes.
I think I had 6.
Ah, you lucked out.
Maybe 3.
Mark gets 6.
That was an out-of-body experience. I've told this story so many times, I'm probably exaggerating it. So anyone who's actually there, feel free to tell me the truth. But basically, he comes in the room. No. Basically, we're waiting, and we're waiting, and I hear the Secret Service radios. You can hear what's happening. The POTUS leaving West Wing, POTUS traveling, and everyone's like, he's coming. And you expect somebody to go, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America. But he's in his own house, so he just kind of walks in the room. So I kind of, so he looks around and goes, okay, guys, what's happening here? I go, hi, Mr. President, could you stand on that X? And we prepared an X, on the carpet. I pick up my camera. I haven't introduced myself. This is not how I work. This is not who I am. This is a once in a lifetime. But at this point, I'm kind of out of having the outer body experience. And then I thought, God, I got to say hello. I got to introduce myself. So I kind of put my camera down. I take 4 or 5 steps towards him, and I can see the Secret Service moving into the side. And I incoherently said something like, Mr. President, I'm an immigrant to this country. It's such an honor to be in your house. Thank you for having me. I'm just blown away. I thank you for having us, and you're wonderful. And I'm going to try and take some photos. And he looked at me and he connected, and I saw his eyes light up. And I bring the camera up and I look at him and go, and then I think I must have felt like Mark confidence. And I go, so how's your day, sir? Busy? You got a busy one today? And I saw him smile, and I saw the connection. And for that 30 to 40 seconds where I did that, I had a connection with him. He was looking at me, I was looking at him. And then I could see like the eyes glaze.
Yep.
And I know the next thing he's doing is he's having lunch with his wife.
Yep.
Because they told us his schedule, and he's late for it because he's late for us, because he's late for somebody else. And I can see his eyes glaze over, and I know that he's now left the building. If
Houston,
you like.
the Eagle has left.
Pretty much. And I said, Mr. President, amazing. Thank you so much.
Right.
The lights got shitty again.
It's funny how, as a portrait photographer, you know the instant that your subject vacates. And
yeah.
you either work as hard as you can to bring them back, or like in this case, you're like, you know what? I know I got what I need. I'm not going to push it. And it's the freaking president.
Yeah.
Do you have, what's that? Are there any, sorry, you go ahead.
But if I hadn't gone and spoken to him, I wouldn't have got that shot.
Right, of course. And that's who makes you who you are.
It's funny. We spoke to someone who photographed the president and had, the same 4 minutes. And I asked him about the photo, and Obama was giving him this look. And I was like, what did you say? What? And he asked him to do something he didn't want to do. And he looked at him and he said, I don't do that. Something like, I don't do that. And I was like, that was,
and he goes, click, and takes the picture
and got the picture. and that was his shot.
That's another way to get it. I mean, please. I mean, whatever you got to do.
No, I mean, personally, I as much as I can appreciate that style, I can't relate to that style.
No, I can't relate to it either, but it's also, I don't know.
No, you make people feel you make people feel comfortable. And like I said, I've never seen you work, but just having a conversation with you and hearing what you try to get across and how you communicate with them in a way in which the camera's almost it's not there. It's just a tool for you to see them, for them. And then when they see you is when you get that picture that.
Well, that's the collaborative part of it.
Yep.
Somebody says that.
Yeah. You need I think the cameras for portrait photographers need to have like a little speaking cones that go on the outsides of the camera. So when you talk at the camera, the voice kind of carries forward.
Or it's like a ring light, there's no,
like there needs to be a little microphone in the back with a speaker in the front. So when you're directing your subject, they don't hear.
But a lot of people say they like that time, and they go, what?
Right.
And I snap the
and that's
photo
the picture. Yeah. Whose idea was it to put the Joker card in George Carlin's cuff?
I
like that.
I can't remember. I can't remember if that was me or if it was a prop stylist. Or if it was, no. That was we talked about. That was a preconceived idea.
Got it.
Yeah.
So the Graflex.
I love my Graflex.
Man, I'm telling you, this is like, they're such lovely, beautiful, warm photos. There's a quality to them that you just want to crawl right in there.
Well, you only take one photo. I mean, you only take a couple of photos, and you take your time, and you have the time to communicate with the person. And for the Graflex, I think the camera becomes the celebrity in the room.
It's the hero.
So everyone's like, ooh, I can see myself. Wow, you know. So it takes a little pressure off you, and it takes a little pressure off you when the camera is a celebrity. I'd love to do more of it. I mean, I love it, but unfortunately, no more Fuji FP100. So I used to shoot a lot of 4x5 Polaroid.
Well, you can spend a lot of money to get that stuff.
Yeah, I have some of it, and I keep pretending I'm saving it for something, and I know what I'm saving it for.
I guess if the right shoot came along.
Well, I used it recently. I was photographing. Please cut this bit out. It's horrible. I used it recently. I used it recently on a shoot with Francis Ford Coppola, because everybody told me that Coppola is pretty tough, and he's not really going to want to do this, and I want to do that, and this Coppola won't do this. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show up with a big old camera, because I know he loves lenses, and I know he loves cameras. A little research, and I know that this is going to kind of throw him a little bit. So he comes into the room, and he's like, well, what do you want me to do? Mr. Coppola, it's so nice to meet you. Can you have a seat there? I thought we'd start. And I brought over this Graflex. He goes, oh, a Graflex. Wow, I haven't seen one of these for a while. And wow, and that's great. And I had him. I did a couple of Graflex shots, which I set the camera wrong, so the pictures were crap. But by the time I got to my Leica and I started photographing, he knew I was kind of somebody that kind of was a aficionado. I wouldn't go that far. But at the worst, he knew that I'd made an effort, right? At the worst case scenario, he knew I'd made an effort, and he gave me lots of great shots. So
it's interesting, because my next question for you, which you answered, was, did you take the Graflex out first and risk having them lose interest and saying, okay, that's it, I got to go, and you're like, oh, I didn't get what I needed with the Leica, and you're already leaving? Or do you shoot with the Leica first, get what you need safely for the client or whatever it is, and then the Graflex is like, hey, what do you think? Can we do this? So you were very bold there, my friend. Well,
with Coppola, I knew that I had, I used it to grab his attention.
Yeah.
Often it's the other way around. It's like, let's get what we need, and maybe we'll get something. But if Coppola had left after the Graflex, I would have 3 or 4 sheets of film that were deeply, deeply underexposed.
Yeah. And there's no recovering them. Like, that's kind of, they are what they are.
I might have been able to make an art piece.
Right.
It would have been a stretch to call it a photograph.
Oh, that's funny. Well, you just got to hope that he doesn't come back and say, oh, yeah, I want to see those Polaroids. And you're like, what Polaroids?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You just put a border around the
oh, you think that there was film in that camera?
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's like, that old thing in Hollywood where, they do the take, and then they go, that's perfect, that's brilliant, that's fantastic. Let's just do one more for safety. The director goes, put some film in the camera.
Right. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Mark has said it all. He now has me spending pretty much everything I have left in my savings and then some on a new SL2 system. No. And potentially an S system. He's shaking his head no, but no, it's going to happen. I have the feeling. But
I promise you, Mark, it's happening.
As I said, do yourself a favor, come and try it.
I am, and I'm going to try it when we can do things masks off. Again, amazing podcast. Please follow Mark Mann on Instagram. Follow him on Facebook. Follow him on his website. Where else do we want to promote? Do we want to send anybody to buying a book or a print or things of that sort? No.
Follow me around the garden.
Follow Mark Mann around the garden. I will put links to Mark's stuff in the description below. What an incredible treat to talk to Mark and hear some of his great stories and just have him on as a as a guest and a friend. So thank you guys so much. That's it for now, and we'll see you soon.